Hey there, good morning everyone. It is Friday, April 3rd. We're going to finish the Glass Menagerie today. Scene 7, big scene, lots going on, way too much to read online, it'd take me way too long, but please, if you have not watched it, please watch it. Watch the play. Um, in the last scene, Jim O'Connor uh, has moments with Laura that are worth watching. I can't do it justice reading it to you, and I think it'd be in your best interest to watch the play and see the ending. This morning, the final assignment for the play will go up. You'll see it. Basically, I have a link to this video. I have a link to a summary and analysis video from Course Hero. I attached a full study guide, which includes answers to all the questions you could possibly have about the play. And in addition, there is a multiple choice test. It'll be the only, it'll be the grade for the play that'll go in as a mastery grade. Speaking of, my grades are due this week, not this week, next week. It'll be the end of the quarter, which for those of you keeping track with the calendar means we're already in April. Grades for third quarter are due the 6th, finalized the 8th. Report cards go out the 15th of April. And you guys have a final exam the first week in May. If we don't go back to live classes and we're still online, that means there's only like 3.5 weeks for fourth quarter and a final exam. So let's get your grades in for third quarter, make sure everybody's doing okay, and then we'll get into fourth quarter and take care of all of that. All right, so let me give you the highlights of scene 7. Then you're going to watch it because it's worth it. And then you're going to look at the study guide. The test is multiple choice in a PDF format. I think the easiest way to submit it back to me is download a copy of the PDF, highlight the answers, and then save it with the highlights of which one you think is the right answer and send it back. If you have technical issues with that, um, we'll figure out a workaround. If you need to just on a piece of paper write 1A, 2B, whatever, and get that to me, that works too. However you want to get it to me is what I'll take because, we're living in times where we've got to make adjustments. So, scene 7, the lights go out because Tom didn't pay the electric bill because he used his money to join the Merchant Marines. And Jim and Laura are sitting on the floor, and Jim is being Jim. Jim's a pretty big character, and he does some interesting things. So there's just a couple of things that I want to point out to you that I think are super important to understanding the play and Tennessee Williams and worth noting. So they've had dinner. They're sitting in the living room. Tom and Amanda are apparently in the kitchen and can't hear or see anything. They're gone off the stage. It is just Jim and Laura. And Laura is just uh, incredibly shy and incredibly nervous. And they have this conversation about that they know each other, but they can't tell how. But Laura knows Jim. She knows where he's from. He doesn't really recognize her. He kind of does, but he doesn't remember her name. He says he remembers her as something different, and she says blue roses. And he says, "That's right, that's right." Um, so Laura had a big crush on him in high school. Jim didn't even know she existed, and that was a painful realization for Laura, of course. Um, but now they're sitting there, and he is trying to give her advice about life in general, and that she shouldn't be shy, which is about as helpful as telling someone they shouldn't be sad. I think if you're shy, it's something you need to work on. He does give her some interesting advice. Whether you can take that advice or not, I'm not sure. But he says to her, people are not so dreadful when you know them. That's what you have to remember. And everybody has problems, not just you, but practically everybody has got some problems. You think of yourself as having the only problems, as being the only one who is disappointed. But just look around you, and you will see lots of people as disappointed as you are. For instance, I hoped when I was going to high school that I would be further along at this time, 6 years later than I am now. You remember that wonderful write-up I had in the Torch. So he's still kind of living in that memory of his glory days as well. But I think there are a couple of good things to point out in there. He says, you think of yourself as having the only problems, as being the only one who's disappointed. But there are lots of people who are disappointed. Uh, I don't know if that helps or not, but the reality of it is it's useful to keep track of the fact that we all have problems, we all have struggles, we all have things we're dealing with, and I think it's twofold. Number one, be gentle and kind with yourself because sometimes stuff's hard, but also be gentle and kind with other people because you don't know what they're going through. They are also dealing with things that you can't see or imagine sometimes. Um, the next thing that I want to talk to you about in scene 7, Jim asks Laura, "What have you been doing since high school?" And she says, "Nothing much." And he says, "Well, you must have been doing something in 6 years." And she said, "Yes." "Well, then, what?" And she says, "I took a course at business college." And he says, "How did that work out?" And she says, "Well, not very well. I had to drop out. It gave me indigestion." Jim's got to be thinking, okay. And he says, "What are you doing now?" She says, "I don't do anything much." "Oh, please don't think I just sit around doing nothing. My glass collection takes up a good deal of my time. Glass is something you have to take good care of." And he says, "What did you say about glass?" "Collection," I said. "I have one." Um, 6 years looking at a glass collection. Yeah. He says, "You know what I judge to be the trouble with you? Inferiority complex. That's what they call it when someone low rates himself." Which is true. Jim's not wrong about that. Laura certainly does have an inferiority complex, but it is certainly beyond Jim's capacity to be able to save her from that. I don't think it's something that he's going to just swoop in and fix in a minute. Um, he tells her that she needs to think of herself as superior in some way, and she says, "In what way would I think that?" He says, "Why, man alive, Laura, just look about you a little. What do you see? A world full of common people." But again, Jim is not necessarily capable of saving Laura. They bring up a piece of glass that's a big symbol in the play, and it is a unicorn. And as you know, unicorns are fictional characters. But Laura has a glass unicorn, and Jim mentions, "Aren't they extinct in the modern world?" And she says yes. And then they dance. And she is falling for him because it's the only attention she's gotten. And they accidentally break the unicorn, but they don't break it just in shatters. They break it in a way that just breaks its horn off, turning this unique character that doesn't exist in the modern world into a horse. And that's kind of what Jim's doing with Laura. She's this fragile, unusual creature, and him dancing with her and talking with her and making her feel normal kind of turns her into that horse. Um, Jim keeps going on with Laura and getting her all to the point where she thinks this might actually be a thing. And then he hits it with a hammer and he says, "I've got strings on me, Laura. I've been going steady." And he tells her that he can't call again, that he's actually engaged, um, which is a shock to Laura. And you really got to watch what a shock it is to Amanda. Um, but Laura gives him the unicorn, well, now a horse, as a souvenir. She she gives him a piece of her glass collection, and she does that because she can't keep it. The symbolic reference to the unicorn, she is that unicorn. With the horn removed, she's a normal horse. And because he removed the horn, that normal horse isn't her. It goes with Jim, so he keeps it as a souvenir. Uh, Jim leaves. He's disappointed Amanda, and Amanda is just furious with Tom. Very much worth watching how angry she is. But then the ending is what I want to point out to you. And you really, again, I know I keep saying watch it, but it's worth it, I promise. Tom's final analysis at the end of the play, his final speech, he says, I didn't go to the moon. He and Amanda have a big fight about him being stupid and bringing a engaged man home for his sister. Tom says, I didn't go to the moon. I went much further. For time is the longest distance between two places. That quote right there. Time is the longest distance between two places. So true. Just think about that for a moment. Not long after that, I was fired for writing a poem on the lid of a shoebox. I left St. Louis. I descended the step of this fire escape for a last time and followed from then on in my father's footsteps, attempting to find in motion what was lost in space. I traveled around a great deal. The cities swept about me like dead leaves, leaves that were brightly colored but torn away from the branches. I would have stopped, but I was pursued by something. It always came upon me unawares, taking me altogether by surprise. Perhaps it was a familiar bit of music. Perhaps it was only a piece of transparent glass. Perhaps I'm walking along a street at night in some strange city before I have found companions. I pass the lighted window of a shop where perfume is sold. The window is filled with pieces of colored glass, tiny transparent bottles in delicate colors like bits of a shattered rainbow. Then all at once my sister touches my shoulder. I turn around and look into her eyes. Oh, Laura, Laura, I tried to leave you behind me, but I am more faithful than I intended to be. I reach for a cigarette. I cross the street. I run into the movies or a bar. I buy a drink. I speak to the nearest stranger. Anything that can blow your candles out. For nowadays, the world is lit by lightning. Blow out your candles, Laura. And so goodbye. What Tom is suggesting in that ending is that he does in fact leave. The play is memory. He doesn't maybe doubt that he did the right thing in leaving, but he has regrets and remorse because he knows his sister um, is not capable of functioning in the modern world. And when he says, the world is lit by lightning, and she's trying to get by with a candle. But he is more faithful than he intended to be because he thought he could leave and move on and not think about it again. But the fact that the play is in memory is indicative of the idea that he is unable to leave it all behind him. He tries, but then he metaphorically feels her hand on his shoulder and has regret for having left. It's still the right thing to do for him, but it was a hard decision to make. So it's Friday. The assignments will be posted. I don't think the multiple choice test is anything that you need to struggle with. I didn't intend for it to be. It's just a way for me to get a grade in the grade book and show that you watched the play. So use the resources I posted. Highlight the right answers, send them in to me. I'll get them graded. I'll get your grades updated. And I hope you have a great weekend. Please stay safe. Take care of each other. Keep social distancing. We'll get through all this. I miss seeing your faces. That's true. I don't have a chicken today because it was still dark out when I started this, and I just wanted to get your videos uploaded for you. So chickens next week. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves. That's important. And we'll see you later. Have a great weekend, everybody.